Andrew, are we ready to proceed?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the YouTube up here. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
It's like we're up. Right. It's okay if I read the meeting intro there before we get started?
Sure, go ahead.
Because we're live now. The format of this meeting consists of board members and applicants attending a live meeting on Zoom. Intro there before we get started. Looks like we have 5 board members here at the meeting. For applicants, please only speak when the chair indicates it's time to do so. For example, he may ask if anyone is present to speak for an application. In addition, as usual, prior to addressing the board, please state your name, address, the firm you will tell the truth. The meeting is also streaming live on the city's YouTube channel. Looks like we have 5 people viewing the meeting on YouTube right now. For the public, viewers on YouTube have the ability to type in comments. If you enter in a comment on YouTube, please first indicate your name and address. Comments can be entered at any time, but will be relayed to the board when the chair indicates that it's time to do so. Any other comments submitted to me prior to tonight's meeting have also been forwarded to the board. Please also be aware there's an approximate 15-second delay between the Zoom meeting and the live stream on YouTube. That's all I have for now, and I'll turn the meeting over to Stuart to begin.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. This is the regularly scheduled August meeting of the Worcester Board of Building and Zoning Appeals. This is a volunteer board of Worcester citizens established to hear requests for variances, appeals, and similar applications as specified in the City of Worcester Planning and Zoning Code. Board members present this evening are Greg McIlvain, Doug McMillan, Mark Reynolds, Ken Suchan, and Brad Gowans. My name is Stuart Fitzgibbon, and I am the chairman of this board. Because these meetings are a matter of legal record, the public portion of the meeting is recorded. Therefore, we ask that if and when you speak, please speak loudly and clearly. We also ask that prior to speaking, as Andrew just indicated, each speaker gives his or her name, address, and affirmation to tell the truth. Following the meeting, the appellant for each application will receive notification of the board's decision. The applications to be considered tonight are applications 20-18, 20-19, and 20-17. Our first agenda item is roll call. Greg?
Here.
Doug?
Here.
Mark?
Looks like you're muted, Mark.
Here.
Thank you, Mark. Ken?
Here.
And Brad?
Here.
And I too am here. Our next order of business is our July 2nd.
You can see everything that you're doing. So just be okay.
Any questions, comments, or corrections?
Okay, just
All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So motion to approve.
Okay, I think Ken was first. Who else jumped in there? Brad?
Yep, I'll
Seconded-
second.
Okay, seconded by Brad. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. All right, the minutes are approved. All right, our first application this evening is BZA 20-18. Chad Brockett requesting an area variance to Planning and Zoning Code Section 1115.03(a) to allow a new home within required side yard setbacks at 1053 Ashwood Drive. Is there someone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Yes, this is Chad Brockett.
Okay, please state your address and your affirmation to tell the truth.
My address is 1905 State Route 89, Jeromesville, 44840. And I will tell the truth.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Yes, we're looking to apply for a variance to have 6-foot setbacks on both sides of the house instead of the totaling 15.
Hey, did we lose you, Chad, or are you saying anything else?
That's just the variance we're looking for, is to have a smaller side yard on both sides.
Okay, and why is that?
This is the smallest lot in the community, and to keep everything uniform in the community where the other houses are, we'd like to have the setback of 50 feet in the front, and this will align our garage with the house to the east. And with that, because it is tapered in the back, it's shortening our side yard distance.
Questions from members of the board?
I have a question. When I look at the drawing there that's up on the screen, the main living area, could that not be moved over to the right to be in line with the garage so that it's got your 6 feet still on the right side, but will add a little bit to the left?
If to the right side stays at 6 foot,
Well, it appears that if you align it with the garage completely, that you go up the garage and then there's a little indentation over for the main living. Can't that be brought into line with the other one and you still maintain 6 foot on that side and add a foot or two on the other side?
well, what that does is it really pushes the garage over on the front porch, which makes our entrance very small for the front entrance to the house. And there should be a main floor plan in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it looks like that offsets about 4 feet.
I mean, but if you moved it just slightly, you wouldn't have to be here at all, right? Is that what I get from what that's telling me?
We would be very close to the distance, yes, but we're really trying to achieve to keep this entry open.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just, okay.
You'd also lose.
Yeah, because really to comply with the code, you have to gain 3 feet somewhere.
Yeah. The question is, if you were to move the house forward on the lot, you would be able to meet it, I take it.
We would be able to meet it, but the house would no longer be in line with the house to the west of it.
Right. It would still be set back far enough that the zoning code, but it would not fit the what's already there, the continuation of the deep setbacks along that street. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that's what you didn't want to basically destroy or go against. The line was set up when the subdivision was set up. I guess this 50-foot setback must have been part of the original subdivision.
Yes,
Thank
we're
you.
really looking to keep the home
Yeah.
looking like it's been there.
Absolutely.
And this is the smallest lot in that neighborhood. So we're trying to achieve the square footage that our customer would like while fitting it into the small lot.
Mhm.
Was it possible to move, to go with a different floor plan that would have pushed the house plan back farther in the lot? Maybe turn the rectangle, up and down the lot versus sideways? Or
Well,
are there limitations to building farther back in the lot?
yes, because the left side of the lot tapers back as we go back. So the further we push the house back, the smaller the side setbacks get.
With that design?
With
Or,
this design,
maybe put another way, I think some of the comments that we've gotten are concerned with the garage sticking out in front. And would there be a way to have a design that would essentially have the house go further back? Maybe start flush with the garage and then go further back. Might be long and narrow as opposed to more of a rectangle like you're showing.
Mhm. And with this small parcel, I know the customer would really like to keep as much of the backyard as he can, to keep open for, possible porch or something in the future. He really wanted to keep that back section open.
We did get a high level of concern from some of the neighbors about the house and some objections, particularly the accuracy of the one boundary. Do you have any comments on those letters? Have you seen them?
I have not seen any of those letters, no.
Yeah, I mean, just for the public record, we should state that we've got 5 letters of objection from neighbors. From Salazar, Powers, Walker, Gibbon, Smith, and Fletcher.
And Chad, you could have received an email from our permitting system that those were uploaded yesterday and today. So you want,
Andrew, are those sent forward, are those forwarded to the people requesting the variance?
yes, they're uploaded to our permitting system, and the applicant gets an email that they've been uploaded.
I just went on that system today to print out all the paperwork. I didn't see anything on there. I don't know if I was missing it, but on the main page where I printed everything out, there was no other attachments with any letters from anybody in the neighborhood.
Yeah, there are 5 attachments on your application right now, including those emails.
Oh, I must have overlooked those because I did not see them on there.
And Chet, some of them are quite lengthy, and my concern is we normally don't have this many people objecting. And I almost feel you should take a moment and see what's being said by the people opposed to it.
Open that.
Yeah, I would agree with that because I think as a builder, you want to be very cognizant of the context in which you're building.
I mean,
Well, while Chad's looking, are there other questions from members of the board?
Well, one of the questions is, this is an existing lot of record, is it not? It was not created. It was an existing lot in the subdivision always.
No.
Is that correct? Because that's what it shows on the auditor's site. That it is an existing lot, has a number, and it is about 9,200 square feet, which is in excess of the 8,700 required for a single family in this district. So it is a lot on which a single family home could be built. And we don't have anything in the code about, except for coverage in that, about whether it can be a single family or a two family, all the rest of the things that have to do with people's perception of property value. I would imagine that this house is going to come in at a value close to $200,000 based on what's being built today and with 1,400 and some square feet.
Correct.
And Ken, that is correct. There's a lot of record. We do not currently have any aesthetic requirements for single-family homes. And with your building permit application, you're required to put the estimated construction price, I believe was 209,000 was the
Right,
estimated.
and the most recent sale, which was in 2020 to at the end of the street, was 197, which seems perfectly in keeping with the values of the neighborhood, because most of the 5 letters basically objected to this depreciating their property values, which has never been a consideration that we or the Planning Commission could make.
One of the questions raised in the letters was the accuracy of the boundaries. And if what the builder and the applicant are using are inaccurate, is this appeal accurate with regards to what the variance that they're asking for? Do we need to consider that?
Well, the drawing looks like the drawing on the of the lot on the Wayne County Auditor site. 60 in the back, 140 along the one side, and all of those dimensions are the same. So
I guess there might be a dispute where that boundary actually is, but the square footage probably wouldn't change. The footage.
Right.
And I can agree with that. When I was out on the property, using the stakes that were placed on the property, I ran a line of string going from stake to stake, and the neighbor's property driveway and fence was, from what I could tell, going over onto the property that we're working on.
Yeah, well, I would think that would be an issue that between your owner and the next door neighbor, that somebody would probably need to pay for a proper survey to determine where that line exactly is.
Also, somebody talked about moving the garage, and I'm not sure I completely understood that. But my question is, what if you took the bedrooms on the left and moved them towards the front of the house? Because that's the side of the lot that tapers in. Would you gain some footage by moving them, you know, maybe as much as 10 feet forward?
No, I think that the house could be changed, you know, according to fit on the lot. But I think that the homeowner is really looking for a variance to add this house onto the lot.
Well, I'm just saying that there's a lot of opposition to this, and we normally don't have this kind of opposition, which we take very seriously, that we, you know, I'm just suggesting that maybe they look at some options.
One of the things that I'm noticing in a lot of these, in the couple letters that I've kind of, why I'm talking to you guys, is about the water drainage, things of that nature that I don't know if they really apply to the situation that we're applying a variance for.
Well, I would suspect where you would run into that is when you actually went to apply for your building permit, that you're going to have to demonstrate compliance with water management.
We've already received a permit for stormwater.
Okay, then Yeah, so you're right. That's what we're here to talk about is the 3 feet of variance to the zoning or to the setbacks in the zoning code.
And the house meets the 5-foot minimum already on both sides. But the code requires the total to be 15. So
Correct.
the house is not closer to any neighboring house than you can choose which side you want to put the 5-foot on, or this case, 6 foot. So the actual damage to the neighbor by being too close, that argument does not really exist. I would just, the comment on the 5 letters that we've received, they all seem to be saying the same thing in one way or another, which is nobody should have built on this lot. And they wanted to keep it as open space in their neighborhood forever. But it is a lot of record, and I don't think anybody can prevent somebody from building on it. And if they
Well,
wanted to build a 1,000 square foot house, they could.
Well, in fact, the only way, and this, I think this goes back to land use in general, you know, the only way you can control the land next to you that you want to remain green space is you have to buy it.
Right.
Yes.
Because there's nothing in the code that requires it to be a certain type of use,
Yeah.
other than it's available for a single family residence if it meets all other criteria.
And the other thing, at the end of this cul-de-sac, there are houses, 2 of the houses have used double lots to build. And so therefore they have a much bigger piece of land to put a bigger house on. The argument that a 2-story house is what should be built throughout the neighborhood is I don't know. I live in a neighborhood that all the houses look like this. And they're 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and they're around 1,300 square feet. It's a very normal kind of house to be built these days.
Okay, I think at this point, unless there are any specific questions from the members of the board, what I'd like to do is to open the public hearing and ask if there are others who want to speak to this application, either for or against. So Andrew, we'll wait the 15 seconds to see if there's anything on YouTube.
Haven't received anything yet, but maybe wait a minute or so to make sure there's no additional comments.
Anything, Andrew?
Yeah.
Okay.
1 second here.
And we would be willing to get that property surveyed if needed.
I'm sorry, Chad, was that you speaking?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
I was just stating that we'd be willing to get that property surveyed if there's any discrepancies on where that line is with the neighbor on the west side.
I think that would be very prudent. Okay, so Andrew's putting up a follow-on comment from Mr. Gibb, who was one of the letter writers.
Yes, we will purchase the boundary survey.
Okay, I'm not sure we can really comment on comparing a house built today as a house built 30 to 50 years ago. I mean, I think obviously they're different, but that's just my opinion.
It's irrelevant to this board.
Yeah, I would say that's probably true. The comment that so Chad is willing to pay for a boundary survey, he has said that they would do that.
And you are able to include that in your motion, any conditions such as a boundary survey.
I'm sorry, is that a question for me?
No, I was just a general comment.
Okay.
Looks like that's all. Looks like that's all the comments
That
we're
was
getting
more
right now.
directed to the board than to you, Chad.
Doesn't look like there's any other comments on the YouTube channel right now.
I think it's obvious that the cutting down of the trees, which revealed that there was a lot there, is really what's bothering the neighbors. And there is nothing anybody in the city can do about that, including street trees that were planted as part of the zoning code in my development in Ashton Way. 80% of the trees have been chopped down that were required by the zoning code by the current owners. And there wasn't anything anybody could do about it.
Mhm.
It's just the way things are. There are certain things the code controls, there are other things it doesn't.
Yeah, and Ken, I agree with you. I mean, I spent a good deal of time in the code today on the question of, do we have any requirements in terms of what a house might look like?
Yeah.
And the answer is, we don't. That we are limited to setback requirements, lot coverage, and specific things in the building code down to what the house looks like. And so it seems unfortunate that this lot was left fallow for so many years, and now all of a sudden it's back in play when everybody thought it was a non-event.
Well, originally, the 3 lots at the top were what was owned by the house that was built at the head there. There were 3 city lots. And when those people died last year, the Shaffrats, then they resold the 2 lot plus the house for $197 to someone else. And this lot was sold separately.
Ah, okay. That's
It was
the
Nancy
backstory.
and Bill Shaffrat's house.
Okay. All right, that makes perfect sense. So now we know how the lot became available.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Andrew, anything further? I think we've waited more than 15 seconds.
No, there's been nothing further on the YouTube channel.
Okay.
If I may, I just had a question, just out of curiosity. Is there something, and obviously this is not what I'm here for tonight, but is there something about the lot that is different from other lots? Is it shaped differently or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a very narrow lot.
Okay, which is why,
Chad, why don't you respond to it? You're the builder.
And most of the lots in that area, they taper from the back and wide in the front.
okay,
This lot is tapering wide to the back, which really gives us a limited space in the front from the distance from the road to the house to try and keep that setback on both sides.
and so if this was not an unusual lot, there would be no question here because you're just building a normal garage, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
All right, so Andrew, there's nothing further on,
Somebody just added something.
Mr. Gibb had another kind of FYI comment there.
okay, so he's confirming what we just understood, so,
And the lot and the adjoining lot was both sold at auction during the stay-at-home order in late March.
okay. All right, so I guess if there is nothing further coming in from YouTube, then we'll close the public hearing portion of this application. And I'll ask members of the board, do you have a motion or some other course forward?
Can we go into a private session?
I'll take that, Doug, as a motion for an executive session. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
That's Brad seconding. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, Andrew, if you would place us into executive session, please.
Just give me 1 second to do this. Board members will be placed into a private breakout room. Everyone else on the Zoom call and watching online will just continue with everyone else in boxes until the board convenes.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Andrew, I saw a message flash up for a breakout room, but then it went away.
Yeah,
Let me retry that here. Sorry about that.
yeah. Because we have
That's
to.
why we're all still here.
Right.
Okay, there it is.
Click join.
Andrew,
Yes.
am I in the executive session?
Do you want me to place you in the executive session?
Oh, I'm here tonight representing the board, so I mean, you might as well. Can you, since I'm only here on audio? Okay, I can click on,
Did you get a message?
well, I can join by video, but I don't know what happens with the phone.
Looks like it worked, Andrew.
What's that?
Looks like it worked. He's gone.
Okay.
Everyone, I'll be back in just a moment.
I don't think it'd make you look good. They might not even get you tonight.
It's true.
let's see, who are we missing?
Doug.
Okay.
Okay, Brad is back, Doug's back. I think we're just waiting on Greg.
You have to hit something at the top that says break room and said leave break room.
Yeah, I tapped on the phone and that lead came up.
Here's Greg.
There you go.
All right, I think we have everybody back. All right, I'll entertain a motion to return from executive session.
I'll make that
So
motion.
moved.
Thank you, Doug. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, I think I heard Ken first. All in favor of returning from executive session, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, we're back in session. I'll entertain a motion from the board.
I will move approval of the request with the condition that before construction starts, a survey by the builder be performed on the lot to verify the pins, basically.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, I'm sorry, who was that?
Doug?
Doug, thank you, Doug.
Mark?
And just to be clear, you're referring to a boundary survey?
Yes, that's, I
Yes.
should.
All right, so this is voting in the affirmative on BZA 20-18 with the condition that a boundary survey be completed. Ken,
I am voting yes, primarily because this existing lot of record meets all of the other criteria for the code. It is at least 8,700 square feet. It's 9,200. It also has setback from each side of the property of at least 5 feet, which they're 6 feet. It only is missing the fact that the total of the two side yards do not add up to 15 feet. And that is a 3-foot difference, which seems reasonable in light of the fact that the lot slopes and therefore it's an unusual shape for the lot.
hey, thank you, Ken. Doug,
I've got to say, I completely agree with Ken. I think you covered it, so I'm voting yes.
hey, thank you, Doug. Greg,
I'm sympathetic to the people who had concerns about this, but I think that this is the best use for the lot, that turning down the variance is just going to build something else that they would also have objections to. So I'll vote yes for this plan. I think it makes the best of a bad situation.
thank you, Greg. Brad,
I'm gonna vote yes on this as well. I think I appreciate the neighbors who wrote in, but what I looked at is when we look at this, the changing or altering the characteristic of the neighborhood, what we have here is a R1 zoned development, and we have a single family home for single family homes, and we have a single family home that wants to go there. So what they're asking for, the side setbacks, this board has historically approved setbacks that are less than the minimum, and this home is asking for above the minimum. It's just the total area. So I do believe that the lot size is a special circumstance and that this is the minimum necessary. So on our review criteria, that's letters A and C. So for those reasons, I'm going to vote yes.
thank you, Brad. Mark,
I'm also going to vote yes for the reasons stated by my colleagues.
okay, thank you, Mark. I too, I'm very sympathetic to the concerns of the neighbors who all wrote in. It's, as was said earlier, it's rare that we get that much opposition to a request of this nature. So we felt that we needed to take it very seriously. And I think on balance, as was said by some of my colleagues, this is an aggregate dimensional variance. The actual side setbacks are greater than minimum. And I think the builder made a real effort to try to have the house fit in as best as possible by pushing the property back as far as they could to maintain that front lot, which I think really is where you get to curb appeal. So for that reason and all the reasons cited by my colleagues, I too will vote yes on the variance. Chad, the request for variance is approved.
Thank you guys for your consideration.
All right, next up on the agenda, we have BZA 20-19, which is Kathy Brussy requesting a variance to 1113-01 E8D2 regarding fencing. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this application?
Okay. Kathy, are you there?
I see a box for her.
There's audio and video on my screen. I'm not sure what the issue is there.
Andrew, do you have any more information on her status?
I do not. I can maybe just go over it a little bit. She doesn't seem to be able to connect here. On the west side of Burbank Road, the city is installing a bike path running from Milltown all the way to where it exists by the county property there, the large county property. So we have taken out the large tree she has on the east side of her property. She is proposing to install a 4-foot metal fence, black in color. The issue here is the zoning code requires all fencing on a property to be a unified color, and she has a white privacy fence in the rear. So that's what the variance is for. She's uploaded a plan and then a few pictures of what the fence will approximately look like, kind of a standard 4-foot steel fence or metal fence.
Yeah, and I think this is the picture that's most revealing on the application, is that she's got white privacy fence around what I guess most of us would consider her side yard.
Correct. Yeah, the side and the rear yard, and the fence will be in the front yard on the other side of the house.
Okay, so questions from the board members.
What is considered the front of the house? The Cannon Drive frontage?
In a corner lot situation, you kind of have two front yards.
Oh, okay.
Both yards fronting streets are considered front yards.
Okay.
And Andrew, would it be fair to say that the intent of the code is to promote uniformities with each property as opposed to having a hodgepodge of colors and styles.
Correct. Correct, yes.
Although I think that having been said, having an extension of a white vinyl privacy fence out along a major thoroughfare along the bike trail might not be the most attractive option. At least
I agree.
that's an opinion on my part. You know, it's a very public corner. Other
As
questions?
the city's going to plant fir trees all along that side, and then this fence is just going to be in front of that, as I take it. Is that correct?
Correct. It looks like there's some arborvitae being planted behind it. There's some additional screening.
Where do I see that?
Um,
In one of the pictures?
No,
yeah, the dots here on the picture.
Yeah, it's on
Yeah, so
the second page of the summary. It says the application, the applicant is proposing construction of a 4-foot black metal decorative fence along the east side. In addition, conifers will be planted between the home and the proposed fence. So I think elsewhere in the application, she says she's just she really needs the fence just so that there's some definition of her property line.
Yeah.
Because the trees will be behind it. And so she doesn't want people straying off the path. So other questions from the board?
Any write-ins on this?
Well, I was just going to say, let's, if no further questions from the board, then let's open the public hearing portion of this application. And Andrew will start the 15-second clock on YouTube.
for this application, I didn't receive any emails or calls from neighbors.
Andrew, did you just see the message from Kathy Bressi pop up on chat in Zoom?
Yeah, can everyone else see that?
No.
Okay.
Her message is from Kathy Bressi to everyone. We are available for chat.
And I haven't received anything on YouTube.
Okay, and then just for the record, since I'm not sure everybody can see it, both Andrew and I communicated to everyone on the call, including Kathy. We can see your messages if you have anything to add, or I asked her, do you have anything to add to Andrew's presentation of your application? So we'll wait a moment to see if she has any response to either of those. All right. Kathy responds she has nothing to add.
Okay.
So Andrew, anything further on YouTube?
No, there hasn't been any comments on YouTube.
Okay. All right, then we'll close the public hearing portion of this application. Any further questions, comments, or a motion from the board?
I move to approve this variance as presented.
Okay, a
I'll
motion
second.
by Mark. I'm sorry, who seconded?
This was Brad, I'll second.
Okay, Brad seconded. All right, so voting in the affirmative on BZA 20-19. Mark,
Yes, I'm going to vote to approve this variance as presented. I think that the purpose, as Andrew stated, of the code is to prevent kind of a mismatched bench running along a line, whereas this is kind of on a different side of the property. It's just going to be a more or less a decorative fence that's not going to be anywhere near the existing privacy fence. And I don't think it's really the spirit of the code to stop something like this from happening. So I'm going to vote to approve this variance.
okay, thank you, Mark. Brad,
I too am going to vote yes. Just to add on to what Mark said, historically, the board has looked at, when we've approved applications like this, there has been some good separation between the two separate styles of fences. And so I think what the owner is asking is in the spirit and intent of the code. So I'll vote yes on this as well.
okay, thank you, Brad. Greg,
I'll vote yes also for the reasons cited, and I think it'll be an attractive fence and an improvement to the property and separate it from the trail.
thank you, Greg. Doug,
I'm going to vote yes. I actually think it's an attractive fence that they're intending to put up. So I'll agree with my peers here. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Doug. Ken,
I vote yes, based on all the other arguments my colleagues have made.
and I too will vote yes for the well-stated reasons from my colleagues. I think in addition, I would say that there's a very unique circumstance here in that this is a property fronting a public utility development, being the bike path. And so I think what's being proposed here is very suitable and complementary to that development and justifies an exception to the stated requirements of the code. So Kathy, your application is approved. All right, next up we have application BZA 20-17. Charles Hamilton appealing the Planning Commission's decision to approve conditional use application PC-20-14 for building additions to a place of worship at 3186 Burbank Road. Just for the record, this is a new feature of the zoning code that the BZA is now hearing appeals from other organizations in the city, including the Planning Commission. So we also have representation from the city. And I think I had indicated at the outset, Mr. Scavelli, you were going to introduce other participants and their roles, please. And you're on mute, Mr. Scavelli.
Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm John Scavelli. I'm the law director for the city of Worcester. Today I will be appearing as for the city's position from the Planning Commission decision. We do have Kevin Gibbons here. Kevin Gibbons is going to be acting as counsel for this board. And I know that we also have Louise Keating, who is a representative for the church, who is the applicant. And also we have, as you said before, Mr. Hamilton, who is here in opposition to, and is the appellant today in opposition to the decision of the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Scavelli. I think also in a procedural way, since this is new for us, what we have determined, decided to proceed is Mr. Hamilton, since you are the appellant, we will allow you to speak first since your appeal is obviously on the subject of being heard. So you will be heard first. We're going to allow you 15 minutes, as we will also then allow the church 15 minutes to respond. And then we will allow the city 15 minutes to weigh in with their position on the matter. Mr. Hamilton, the one piece of advice that I would give you, having reviewed the record, is one of the things that is not in the jurisdiction of the Board of Building and Zoning Appeals is property maintenance. So I would, I guess, suggest kindly that you focus on the matters germane to your appeal, because the maintenance issues, you would simply file a complaint with the city and they would send an inspector out, because maintenance is part of city ordinances. It's not part of the planning and zoning code. So I would just hate to have you use up too much of your time on that issue since it's not germane to the appeal. So any questions before we get started?
No.
All right, then, Mr. Hamilton, the floor is yours for 15 minutes.
Okay. I'm Charlie Hamilton, 131 Cannon Drive, and I affirm to tell the truth.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I've learned from talking to John Scavelli, actually, that we really have no status in this appeal. So we have no right to appeal the variance approval. John did say in his written statement to you guys that no doubt if the initial meeting were held in person, Mr. Hamilton would have been able to express himself more fully. I believe that. I appealed the fact that I was not allowed to present my position at the time. But I also understand that due to the pandemic and the governor's rulings, that the cities are allowed to handle these meetings however they see fit. That's fine. I can't say that I agree, but at least John was straightforward about all of that. There was some information presented by the church during the July 2nd meeting that was incorrect. Mr. Dano stated that after the 2005 parking lot was expanded, that the stormwater management was reviewed and found to be acceptable. Well, the parking lot was expanded in 2008, not 2005 was the initial building of the parking lot, the original parking lot. The detention pond on the east side of the property, pond number 2, was established based on the initial parking lot, which is a permeable based parking lot, which drained into the ground, not into the storm. So that's what it was. Primarily, their entire parking of about 50 spaces was permeable parking. That was in 2005 when the church was built and was one of their green initiatives. In 2008, without changing detention pond number 2, they tore out all the permeable parking and putting concrete without modifications to detention pond number 2. It is a detention pond. The church was debating that it was allowed to hold water. But if you look at the stormwater calculations in the first approval, that is a detention pond. And detention ponds are allowed to hold water for 24 to 48 hours maximum. They're to be designed and maintained not to hold water over that period of time. And it's in the calculations in the approved initial variance. So my issue there is, and I guess you could call it a complaint, a maintenance complaint, because the church agreed in that initial variance to maintain that pond is required by the city as part of the variance. That pond has had no maintenance in 15 years. So if it was operating properly at the beginning, it's not operating properly now. And I know I was just told that that's a maintenance issue, but that's fine. The other thing is, Mr. Steiner asked if the neighbors, asked Mr. Shantz of the church if the neighbors have brought up any issues before the proposed expansion. And he said not that he was aware of. But if you read all the documents that were submitted by the neighbors, there's been lists of complaints given to the church over the 15 years, whether it be the fence, the drainage, complaints about lights, all types of complaints. So there is documentation from the neighbors. And that was the primary reason for opposing the expansion. If they're going to not take care of the property and they know they're in violation of city ordinances, which they do, then why would we approve an expansion to just further exacerbate the problem? So I probably have wasted too much of my time on that subject. But I do want to say that there is a mound on the south side of the church's property between our property and theirs. The water, it's about a 4-foot mound. It runs, the half of it runs north to their property, which is drained. Half of it runs south onto our property, which is not drained. There's no swell at the bottom of it. It's just a taper that runs into my yard. Everybody, well, except one engineer that I had look at it, everybody goes, well, it's not important. It's a 15-foot slope from the top of the mound to my property with no swell to contain drainage. Now, maybe that's a maintenance issue. Maybe it's not a maintenance issue, but that's just my take on it. So I have, we sent in a petition. Almost everyone on Cannon Drive signed a petition in opposition for all their different reasons. I was told that the petition was not to be considered in zoning and variance issues, that it didn't hold any weight. But, you know, the neighbor's position is, we've been here over 30 years, most of us. This development was here 35 years ago. We didn't have drainage problems then. And we started in 2006 having drainage problems. This petition is submitted by people who pay real estate taxes, who vote for representation, and it's dismissed because it's not part of the zoning process. Well, maybe it should be. So it appears that none of our issues are of importance to the City of Worcester's Zoning Commission. I did try to call our councilman to just discuss it and understand it. I did not get any support or response from him. Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff I'd like to say, but it's a no consequence as I understand it. I apologize to my neighbors for giving them false hopes that we could prevail based on the past practices and negligence of maintenance, and they've not followed the initial variance. And you can look in the drainage calcs and see for yourself. I had a PE look at it to help me read it, because I'm not a PE. So I've also requested a lighting impact study for lighting into our backyard, a noise study, because they're doubling the size of their congregation, doubling the traffic, doubling the people. I asked for a traffic impact study on Burbank, and I've also asked for a stormwater management impact. So I don't know what's going to happen with any of those. So I again apologize to my neighbors that I didn't know what I was doing, but I don't understand how they can get an expansion to double their size in an R1 neighborhood. I don't know how they can get approval when they know they have 7 property maintenance violations of city ordinances, 7 of them. So, I ask you guys to consider that at least these violations are corrected as a conditional approval of their addition. They promise a fence between some properties to block headlights and stuff, but I don't think it's part of I don't think they're required to do it. I can't see where their variance request guarantees they're going to do it. They have been cited for property maintenance in the front for 2 different items. Because of complaints. Now, the church knows they're in violation of a city ordinance, and just like a fellow told me Tuesday, he said ignorance of city zoning laws, ordinances, and procedures is no excuse. So I apologize for being ignorant of them, but it's also no excuse for them. They know that they're in violation of all these city ordinances, and they believe they're still, well, they believe they already have an approval. So I just don't know how that is fair, and I don't know how it's right. But if it's the way it is, then that's the way it is. So I do want to thank John Ansel, Craig Sanders, and John Scavelli for educating me in some of the ways and warning me that I may not like the results, but I still believe that it's fair for us to have these expectations. I do. As taxpaying citizens, I think it's fair. The other issue is I have reached out to Joe Harper of the church. She's on their building expansion committee, and she agreed to look at all of these things with me and has done that. She's made a lot of promises about correcting things. And I want to believe that's true, and I'm willing to work with them. Our neighbors are willing to work with them. We're not bad people. So we have reached out to them, but they have no, they're not required to do anything. Even if they're cited on the maintenance issues, you know, they've got, with the way the thing is set up, they've got 6-8 months to correct them. So, you know, we'll go from there. I don't, after talking to John, I really don't want to waste any more of your time hashing over all of the things you already know about. I will tell you that the church knew of these complaints for a very long time. So to say, to actually get on the meeting and affirm to be telling the truth. Now, maybe Peter Shantz didn't hear about this stuff. It's possible. It is possible. But the church knew about all of these complaints for a very long time. And you have pictures, you see the issues. So my appeal is, you know, why would we give them approval without it being conditional upon all of their city ordinance violations being corrected? As a neighbor, in good faith, who takes care of his property and has pride in it, why is that an unreasonable thing? And I know I'm not doing a very good job of representing the neighbors, and I apologize, and I rest. Anybody, any questions for me?
Well, I think we'll save questions
Okay.
for after we hear all the presentations, but you're spot on your time. And I thank you for respecting that. And
Sure.
If nothing else, what we're here to do, you know, this isn't our normal role to weigh the particular merits of the case so much as we're acting as an appeals body here. So right now we're just listening. So you have now been heard.
Okay.
And we
Thank
hope you
you.
appreciate that.
Oh, no, I definitely appreciate it. And I told John Scavelli and John Anso and Craig Sanders that I appreciated all of their support, listening to me rant. So I didn't do it here.
Well,
And they are very respectful.
okay. Well, and I think your presentation was very well put together. So thank you for that. What I'll just tell you, and you've probably already heard this from Mr. Scavelli, you know, one of the decisions, you know, we have limited options for what we can do here. And one of the things that we cannot do here is to rehear the case and change the decision of the Planning Commission. One of the decisions that I've been advised that we can make, that'll be what we're going to discuss at the end of all this, is do we or do we not send this back to Planning Commission for reconsideration?
Oh,
Because
okay.
that's where
Okay,
the
that's
decision
fair.
has to be weighed.
Yeah, that's fair.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. All right.
I didn't understand that. That's good.
In fairness to then the church now has 15 minutes, and I'll defer to whoever on behalf of the church wants to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fitzgibbon. This is Louise Keating, and
Hello, Louise.
Hello. My office address is 141 East Liberty Street in Worcester, and I affirm to tell the truth.
Thank you.
I'm here representing the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Wayne County. And while I'm the only one with prepared remarks, also present and available should any questions be needed to be directed their way are Peter Shantz, who is a builder and on the building committee for the fellowship, and also John Long, a civil engineer with Schaefer Johnston Lichtenwalter of Worcester, who did the initial engineering for this project when the church was built in 2005, and also has provided the engineering studies that were submitted as part of the application for the expansion. So I thank the board members. I thank Mr. Hamilton. I also thank the members of the city who are present in all capacities. The first point I guess I would like to raise is an appreciation to the state of Ohio for modifying its laws when the pandemic struck in the spring to enable business to be maintained throughout the state in some fashion, even though I think most, if not all of us, would prefer to have meetings in person. That is just not a safe thing to do and would be against governor's orders right now. So the meeting was conducted in accordance with the changes enacted by the Ohio legislature. And we appreciate that opportunity, even as we struggle with some of the technology. The points that were raised by Mr. Hamilton in his printed remarks, the application that he submitted were 8 in number beyond the form of the meeting. One of them he, of course, also addressed here tonight in his comments, and that is the absence of any formal studies for noise or traffic, stormwater. And I do want to point out that that is not a mandatory step. It is not something that as an applicant, we have a right to veto. So had the city found it advisable or necessary for those studies to be done, they would have been done. However, the city reviewed the matter and determined that those would not be necessary in this case. That being said, there was discussion of those points at the meeting. I don't really recall much in terms of noise because a church or a fellowship conducts most of its business indoors, so it's not really an outside noise. But other points, the traffic pattern is not going to vary as a result of this expansion, nor will there be any increase in the parking lot size. Some of the expansions to better accommodate the population that has joined the church since the building was built 15 years ago, and allow for some expansion in future years. But all of that traffic enters from and exits to Burbank Road, which is one of the major north-south arteries in the city, and has substantial traffic that's generated by people reaching the north end commercial districts, as well as the city pool when it's open, and the high school, which of course is down Oldman Road. Stormwater management is definitely an issue. And I don't think anyone disputes the fact that there is water that exists on properties on Cannon Drive. However, the church was required to, when it first was built, and again, with the plans that it's being submitted for this proposed addition, have professionally prepared engineering studies to demonstrate that the water that is generated from stormwater on the property is managed and contained on the property. And the basins, the stormwater basins that exist on the property are designed to do that. But that, of course, does not in any way impact other water that falls on other properties. So it is the opinion of the engineers that have prepared this work that water from the church property is not exiting onto neighboring properties. The type of basin, location of basin, that again is something that is done in accordance with city plan. So whether or not those are designed to be visually appealing or manicured is not as significant as whether they are actually performing their function of capturing the water that's generated. So not only do the engineers that have been retained by the church look at that, but the city engineering department reviews that information as well. The fence is known to be a problem, was going to be addressed by the church as part of the building project. The original fence extends through some of the southerly boundary along where some of the parking is. Through the years, some neighbors did not want a fence, and mounds were put in place in an effort to control and reduce the amount of headlight lights that would go into backyards. The opinion of the planning department that was included in the opinion that they rendered at their July meeting was that there be a continuous fence, solid, from the westernmost parking spot to the easternmost parking spot. That does not include the full southern boundary, because there are about 300 feet west of the parking lot area, and the first 200 feet on the easterly side of the property is not covered by any parking or building. It's just the access road. So the church does regret the fact that the deterioration of the fence caused distress to the neighbors, and also appreciate the fact that once the news of the expansion hit, they shared more of their concerns regarding mowing to the west of the property, west of the retention basin, several hundred feet on the westerly edge of the property, had been left in their natural condition. And that has been reviewed as a result of the neighbors stating that that was not agreeable to them. And I realize that this is not a forum for discussion of maintenance issues, but I do want to go on record on behalf of the church, as I believe other members have individually to the neighbors, that their opinions are important. And it was a sad oversight that many, if not all of the neighbors, learned of the expansion through the mailing that came from the city. It is much better had that been information shared directly from the church, and an ongoing dialogue will be established so that they are kept in the loop as other things are done with the exterior of the property going forward. So that concludes any remarks that I have. Maintenance issues are being considered. There have been 12 steps taken since the meeting to address some of the points raised. And we do seriously appreciate the interest that the neighbors have in their properties and wish to be a good neighbor to them. I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Louise. You still have some time, so if there are other members of the church who'd like to speak, you've got about 5 minutes. Or if you want to give us the time back, we'll take it for questions later.
I believe we would cede that back to you for questions later.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. I believe, Mr. Scavelli, you're going to speak on behalf of the city.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fitzgibbon. I would like to start by saying, first off, that anything that comes out of this is to make the acquaintance of Mr. Hamilton, and we got to speak, and I think he has concerns that we take very seriously. And I hope, and I try to express this to him when I talk to him this time, but I hope that I can express to him again that I am more than willing to listen to him and try to help him with property management. All I was trying to express to him was that that's really just not appropriate for this type of hearing, and it wasn't really appropriate for the prior hearing either. What we're talking about really is the granting of a conditional use permit. And conditional use permits are governed by specific criteria within the codified ordinance of the city of Worcester. Instead, Mr. Hamilton focused on two separate issues. One is property maintenance, which, as I said, is not really part of the property value. And the other was the ability for him to be heard based on the fact that it was within a Zoom meeting like we're in now. So those are the two things that I'm going to address. I just want to touch base very quickly with what the conditional use criteria are, unless the board says that if you're completely familiar with them and you don't want me to go over those, I will not. So I will ask that of Mr. Gibbon. Would you like me to review those, or familiar enough with them that you would not like me to do that?
Was that directed to me? This is Charlie.
No, it's directed to Mr. Fitzgibbon.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I would say, Mr. Scavelli, we're reasonably familiar, but if you'd like to just touch on the high points
I will.
for the record.
For the record, according to the code, the things we're looking at when we're talking about granting a conditional use, conditional use for the building is that we are looking whether or not it's allowed in the zoning district. In this case, we're talking about church in a residential neighborhood. The proposed use, spirit, purpose, and intent of the comprehensive plan and general purpose of the code. 3, the proposed use complies with any use specific standards that may be established for the use.
Mr. Scavelli, you are not coming through very clearly.
I apologize.
You might be too close to your microphone.
Okay, I'll move that. Does that sound better?
Yes, you're clearer, but you're a little softer.
Okay, I will try. I'm going to speak louder. How's that?
That's perfect.
Okay, most people never tell me I'm too quiet, so that's good.
Well, now you've been told.
Any building or structure constructed, reconstructed, or altered as part of a conditional use in a residential zoning district shall, to the maximum extent feasible, have an exterior appearance that the planning commission deems compatible with the surrounding residential buildings, including all height and building materials. The conditional use shall have suitable landscaping, screening, and fencing. The proposed use will comply with all applicable development standards. The proposed use will be harmonious with the existing and intended character of the general vicinity. It will not change the essential character of the area. The proposed use will not involve uses, activities, processes, materials, equipment, conditions of operation that will be detrimental to any person's property or the general welfare. Reasons of excessive production of traffic, noise, smoke, fumes, glare, or odors. The circulation on and access to the property shall be so designed as to not be an interference with traffic or surrounding thoroughfares. And the design of the building, structures, and site will not result in destruction or loss of natural, scenic, or historic features. The proposed use will not include the normal and orderly development of the surrounding property for uses permitted in this. And where no specific areas, frontage, height, setback requirements are specified for a specific use, then such use shall be subject to development standards applicable to zoning districts. What you notice in going through there is none of those things have to do with property maintenance. And so what we're looking at is objectively those particular characteristics and evidence that is presented for them. And so any evidence that is not presented toward those ends really should not be considered in the planning commission and for this body itself. There is an additional section that talks about the general welfare for the area. We could possibly consider those issues. However, I would argue that in that case, that really doesn't apply either, because one of the questions that was specifically asked in the prior hearing was, are you going to have to, before you talk about drainage, are you going to have to go back and have the engineer's office look at this and determine if you complied with everything the city required? The answer is yes. And because of that, the commission decided at that point that that was a sufficient safeguard for the types of issues that were being brought up. So I believe that based upon those issues, just to address the property maintenance that the prior hearing efficiently covered those issues, and that there is nothing that would be sufficient to appeal at this point. That part of the appeal I would ask to be denied. Moving on to the electronic meeting section, that gets a little bit more complicated. As you know, we are currently meeting on Zoom due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And because of that pandemic, the Ohio legislature went ahead and changed temporarily public meetings law until the end of the pandemic, or December 1st, 2020, whichever is earlier, in House Bill number 197. In order to do that, they laid out how that was supposed to work. And what we're talking about in the previous hearing was a public hearing. It wasn't a public meeting. Public meetings in particular, they said all we had to do was give access to the public and say they had to be able to interact. But for a public hearing, you need interaction. So they said that basically you had to do one of two things, or you had to do two. Sorry, you had to make sure that the participants in the public hearing had access to evidence, and also that they were able to question witnesses. So the system that was set up, basically in order to make the system work better, right? Because if we have 100 people, we never know how many people are going to be in a meeting. If we have 100 people in that meeting, it's going to get pretty disorderly. Even if you have 40 people, it's going to get disorderly pretty quickly, and you'll have a cacophony of people trying to talk. So we would invite the applicants, like we have tonight, into the meeting itself, and then anyone else was allowed to appear on YouTube, which is the same thing we're doing tonight. Everything was made just to make those meetings more orderly. And in this particular case, so we asked through YouTube, were they able to do those two things? Did they have access to the evidence, and were they able to question witnesses? What's the background for that? Well, basically, the evidence was sent to all of the neighbors, and any evidence that wasn't in that packet was presented during the hearing itself. And it was presented like it was tonight on the screen so they could do it. So basically, they did have access to the evidence that was presented. As for questioning, basically the same process that we used tonight was used. People, including Mr. Hamilton and the other neighbors, were allowed to type their questions in, and then they were presented as they were tonight in text to the members of the commission. The members of the commission then could respond to them as they saw fit. Now, I will say that they did not respond to each individual question, but most of the questions were on the same topics. And those topics specifically were then used to question the applicant at that time. So based upon that, we feel that we sufficiently allowed them to question the witnesses based upon that. Now, the truth is, this is a temporary law. It's brand new. Nobody really knows what's going to be found to be sufficient. If this was an older law, I could probably bring you cases to say how it's supposed to be treated based on other people that have argued one way or the other. However, we just don't have that. So we're all sort of flying blind trying to come up with the best way to handle things. So I ask you to just take a look at this. The questions of the neighbors were responded. Go back and watch that meeting. And they did have access to all the evidence. Those are the only two things we had to provide. We believe we provided them. Based upon that, the second part of the appeal on the electronic meeting issue also be denied. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Scavelli. At this point, I'll open it up for questions from members of the board to any of the three parties to this appeal, being Mr. Hamilton, presumably Ms. Keating speaking on behalf of the church, and Mr. Scavelli representing the Planning Commission and the city. All right, hearing no questions. What is the pleasure of the board in terms of proceeding?
I'd like to go to an executive meeting.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, this is.
Go ahead. Is that Mr. Gibbons?
It is.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask the board if the board was interested in opening up to questions from the YouTube audience. Because this is an appeal, any questions from the audience would not be considered evidence. However, just in the interest of open meetings, if there are questions that people might have about this issue, for discussion purposes, it might clarify.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gibbons. We will take that as direction to, we will convene a public hearing as part of this appeal and ask Andrew with the appropriate delay to relay any comments from YouTube.
Mr. Hamilton, could you maybe mind the microphone a little bit? We're getting a lot of interference from your microphone there.
Okay.
Andrew, is there anything in the YouTube queue yet?
1 second here. We had a comment, but she didn't want it conveyed to the board. So maybe give it another minute, see if we get anything else. We have 7 people watching.
All right, we will do that.
It doesn't appear we're getting anything else here.
All right. All right, then we will declare the public hearing portion of this meeting closed. And we'll go back to the motion for an executive session, which was made by Greg, and I don't recall who seconded it. Is that you, Brad?
No, but I will.
Okay. All right. We have a motion by Greg, seconded by Brad for executive session. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed say no. All right, Andrew, would you please put the board and Mr. Gibbons into breakout room, please?
Okay, and again, if you're watching on YouTube or Zoom, we'll continue to be live until the board reconvenes.
do a couple chips, but we should have one here. Might be.
Mr. Chairman. Good. I'm on a appeal call with the junior, the city. Yeah. Nope, waiting for my answers now. I think I'm getting scolded bad. So I think I'm getting scolded pretty badly. But that's all right. Why don't you give me a call back tomorrow? Why don't you give me a call back tomorrow? I've got to finish this call. Thanks, bye. What's happening?
There's Mr. McElvain. All right, I think we are all back. I'll entertain a motion to return from executive session.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Greg. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mark, we'll give the second to Mark on that one. Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. All right, Andrew, we're back on the record. Okay, and with apologies to those watching on YouTube and standing by on Zoom for the long executive session. We're going to consider this appeal, which is stated as an appeal of the decision. We're actually going to break it down into two specific topics. So the first motion that we're going to entertain is, did the Planning Commission properly consider the merits of the maintenance issues raised regarding the conditional use? That's the first motion. The second motion, and we will vote on these separately. The second motion is going to be, did the Planning Commission hold a proper public meeting? So on the first motion regarding the maintenance, do I have someone to move and second?
So moved.
Okay, Ken moves. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Greg. All right. Voting in the affirmative on whether or not the Planning Commission properly considered the merits of the maintenance issues. Brad.
To vote yes, I do believe that the commission did. I've reviewed the material that's presented to us from that planning commission meeting. I did watch the video of the planning commission meeting, and I believe that they addressed the concerns, spoke to the members of the church about these concerns, and even put a conditional use on their approval. So for those reasons, I do think that they did consider. So yes.
Okay, thank you, Brad. Mark?
I also agree with Brad. I think that the planning commission did listen to the merits of the maintenance issues that were presented by the applicants to the application to the planning commission, and that they did address some of those issues in their decision.
Thank you, Mark. Ken?
I am voting yes. I believe the record shows that the planning commission did hear all of the issues raised by the residents and did include in their conditional use an item dealing with maintenance, that being fence.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Doug?
Yes, I'm gonna say yes. I feel compassion for the neighbors and their maintenance problems, but they do have a further outlet to go back and approach the city about those maintenance issues. And so I'm voting yes, that they did cover that in the planning.
Thank you, Doug. Greg?
I'll vote yes also for the reasons cited, particularly that he has, I think, more appropriate avenues to appeal on the maintenance issues through the city departments.
Okay, thank you, Greg. I too will vote yes for all of the reasons cited by my colleagues. And I think based on the testimony that we heard tonight that summarized the issues and comparing that to the record created by the Planning Commission, I do believe that they adequately considered the maintenance issues, that they did make one of them, the fence, a condition of the conditional use approval. And that, as was said by others, I think that the maintenance issues can be addressed by going through the city departments. And I think we heard some willingness on the part of the church tonight to do that. So I too vote yes. And so on the first part, the first motion of whether or not the planning commission properly weighed the merits of the maintenance issues, that portion of the appeal is denied. Now, on the second part of the appeal, whether or not the planning commission conducted a proper public meeting, do I have a motion or do I have someone to move that motion as previously stated?
So moved.
Thank you, Brad. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mark. All right, voting in the affirmative regarding the public hearing. Brad?
I'm going to vote yes. I do believe that a legal public meeting, public hearing was had. I believe that the law as presented by Mr. Scavelli that the legislature passed earlier this year produced standards for how to conduct it, and the city has been conducting their meetings in that manner. So yes, I do believe it was conducted legally and lawfully.
Thank you, Brad. Mark?
I agree with Brad. I believe it was a lawful meeting. Now, I think that, given everything that's going on, it may not have been the perfect setting for a meeting that, given the legislation passed, the city met all those requirements to make it a legal public meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Ken?
I'm voting yes. I think that the city did meet all of the criteria for a public meeting during the COVID crisis. It wasn't an ideal meeting, but it did meet all the criteria the state sets up.
Thank you, Ken. Doug?
Well, I think it did meet all the criteria that was set up by the state. I mean, I have some hesitancy because I, would like to see it maybe done differently, but it did meet all the requirements. So I think it was legal, and I'm voting yes.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Greg?
I'd also vote yes. I think it met the legal requirement. And as Doug said, I think the city could examine the meetings, and if there's any way to improve them, that everybody gets to be seen, and as well as typing in answer questions.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Okay, I too will vote yes for the reasons cited by my colleagues. And I would also reiterate the point made by others that while the methodology adopted by the state for COVID doesn't yield the same type of a public meeting that we are all used to, I think that the city, and I think that we as a board, and I think that other boards of the city and city council for that matter, have all worked very hard to make sure that the public is heard. So I too agree that the public meeting was properly held, and I think that all the issues again were documented in the record of the Planning Commission. So identify any gaps that were left by the public meeting procedure. So therefore, this portion of the motion passes, which then means that this portion of the appeal is denied. And in total, then the appeal is denied. Do we have any further business to come before the board? Andrew?
I have nothing else. I'd just like to thank Kyle Adams. He's the chair of the Planning Commission, who was present for the entire meeting. In case you had any questions for him, so I'd just like to thank Kyle for attending this meeting.
Problem.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to be here.
All right, and also thank you to the city legal department for being here to walk us through the legalities.
You're
Okay.
welcome, and thank you for having a very wonderful hearing. We appreciate being a part of it and the chance to present before the board.
Okay.
And also, again, I would like to say thank you to Mr. Hamilton, and it was a pleasure to make your acquaintance, and I hope that I can help you in the future.
Yeah, Mr. Hamilton, I would also offer the thanks of the board for your taking the time to pursue this and work through the process with us. And if nothing else, I think I heard some commitments on the part of the church to try to be a better neighbor. And I think at the end of the day, that's what you're looking for. So thank you for your participation.
You're welcome.
And we hope you feel like you were heard.
I can't say that I do, but that's the process. So it's okay. Well, my goal is going to be to reach out to the church and work with them. I'm disappointed that they had to wait until they needed something to reach out. But Joe Harper from the church has reached out. I think she's sincere, and, rather than use the city violation of city ordinance and bother Dave Wilson every other day, my goal is going to be to work with Joe Harper of the UU and try to get these things more in line with being good neighbors on both sides. So that'll be my goal to start with, and I'm hoping that works, and I don't have to bother the city with any of my troubles.
Well, but that's what they're there for. So
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hamilton.
yeah, so
Welcome.
come, keep us posted.
Well, no, we'll do it. Yeah, John's invited me to Sorelli to talk to him, and he's been very sincere and good through the process, and we'll get through this one way or another, hopefully the good neighbor way.
Let's hope. All right, good
Yes.
luck.
Yep, thank you very much.
All right, hearing no further business, I'll entertain a motion for
I
adjournment.
move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Doug. Second? By Brad. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Good job, Stuart.